Hey geeks, what's going on? My name is Bran and welcome back to the Geek XP. I apologize for my sort of elongated absence. Lots of things to do, but fortunately Kyle's been picking up the slack and posting some awesome videos, so if you guys haven't checked those out, make sure you do. Today I'm starting a new series called Dungeon Master's Journal. For anyone who's familiar with Matthew Colville and his channel, he does a campaign diary for his D&D game. And so this is sort of in the spirit of that because I've just started a new D&D game. We played last night. Made characters last week, and so every week when we play, I want to sort of talk about what happened in the game, what the players did versus my expectations, and I think it might be a fun way to just sort of, for me to think out how the game goes and how I can improve and to share the game with you guys. So the adventure that I'm running for my players is the starter set. Lost Mines of Phandelver. You can pick it up, it has everything you need, you don't even need the core rule books, and even though I've run a lot of games before, I find that running pre-published stuff and then changing it is a good way to not invest quite as much time in preparation in case, you know, not every game works out, whether it's the people or scheduling or whatever. And so it allows me to be creative. I can change things, which I'm doing quite a bit of changing. You're putting in a good amount of time, but not so much that if it all falls apart that you've wasted all this time. So, and then once they reach past 5th level and they complete the adventure, if they survive, then I can make new stuff after that. So they're starting with Lost Mine of Phandelver, and my players are my girlfriend Georgia, who's playing Agnes, the human warlock, Fae Pact, my friend Leo, and Richard from work. Leo's playing a halfling rogue with a pirate background named Finn. Richard is playing a wood elf monk named Eldrin, and then my friend Sharon, who's playing a dragonborn barbarian. And I let her customize her miniature that I'm ordering for her, and it's got like horns and a tail. And even though Dragonborn don't have those, like technically, there's like you can be a dragon person without horns and a tail in every other game. So I thought, like, why not? And then it gave me some ideas for how to flavor the Dragonborn. So normally the game has the players start at the Goblin ambush on their way to the town of Phandalin as they're escorting this wagon. But I decided to have them start in my analog for Neverwinter, where this game takes place in the Forgotten Realms, published by Wizards of the Coast, and I've taken the cities. Right now, the Sword Coast is geographically identical. I'm just changing the names of things for now, and then I'm going to start changing things as they get farther out. But instead of Faerun, they're in the land of Ebereth, and instead of the Sword Coast, it's the Broken Coast. See how easy that is? I just change one name out of that, and now it's my own thing, and I can keep tweaking it. And so they started in the city of Arendor, which is my analog for Neverwinter, and they met up in the Green Tankard to meet up with Gundren, who is the dwarf that gives you the job at the beginning of this adventure. I thought it would be good to have them start there. You get them to start in a tavern. While it is cliche, provides a nice, comfortable social lubricant for the players to start talking across the table, but also to maybe get into character. I had no idea how these players were going to go. My girlfriend Georgia has played once, and then my two friends, Leo and Sharon, have never played before. Richard has, but I wasn't sure what kind of gamer he was. So I like to getting into the characters and do a lot of role-playing and acting and doing voices. So I did that to start when they meet up with the serving staff and the bartenders at the tavern. And they do a little bit of back and forth. Some of them just describe what they do, and that's fine, but they're talking, they're having a good time. And I have Gundren is meeting with them to discuss this job, and I have Sildar, who's his escort, go with him. And Sildar, he says he's like kind-hearted in the adventure book, but I made him a little bit more stern and discerning. He's all about order. He's part of the Alliance of Lords, which I couldn't come up with a better name than Lords Alliance, so I just swapped the place of the two words. It just sounds cool. So he's with him, and I made him, doesn't like how much Gundren trusts these mercenaries and rat catchers for as far as he's concerned. He would rather have like actual warriors and like other agents of his guild go with Gundren in this effort to try to bring prosperity and growth and civilization to the town of Phandalin. Gundren wants to hire these guys. They're a little bit cheaper. He knows some of them personally, and he trusts them. So Sildar's going, he's got some other business. He's looking for another member of the Alliance of Lords. But I thought it was nice to have this interaction with him. They got to meet him so that later when they find out that he's been attacked and captured, he might even be dead, they're like, we need to rescue him. Like one of the players, my girlfriend's character, Gundren was her friend from when she was a kid. And so she was like, guys, we need to go save them. And they had this cool moment where they had to vote on whether or not they were going to continue on to Phandalin or trek through the woods, leave the oxen and wagon behind tied up in the trees, and hope that they would be okay. It was tough. My friend Leo playing the rogue, we were talking earlier about, like, why would he go on this mission for this dwarf? Like, what does he have to gain? He's like a pirate, he's a scoundrel, he's a rogue. And so we had that, I thought it would be cool if he had like an ulterior motive, and that he's been looking to get some money. His long-term goal is to get his own ship so he can be his own pirate captain. And what I came up with him is that in Phandalin, it's written in that at the Miners Exchange, it's run by a woman named Halia Thornton, who's a member of the Zentarum. In my setting, I renamed them the Hand, Daredevil reference. Also known as the Shadow Network, and he has made contact with them, and sort of as like a trial run, or as just like some work, he is to smuggle some illegal goods from Arendor to Phandalin, and smuggling them in the wagon. So I, had this little interaction that he went off and met up with a contact from the Hand, and they gave him this chest full of like poison, some couple vials of acid, and some like daggers and crossbows. That he used to deliver to their agent Halia in the town. So he was really reluctant to let the wagon go, which was this cool little moment, but he decided to go with them.
Okay. This is Lou. Lou. I'm a kitty cat. Boop, boop, boop.
And they ended up voting to go for him. They decided that if they took more than a day to find where they had been taken, that they would go back. But it was this cool little moment, and they actually did pretty well. That ambush is deadly. 4 goblins ambushing and potentially surprising them. Only the monk noticed that they were being ambushed, so he was the only one to surprise them, but he managed to kill a goblin in one shot, and then only one of the other ones got hit. It almost killed her, but then they managed to dispatch the rest of them. There was a crit Eldritch Blast, which took a head off a goblin, and yeah, so they did a good job. The warlock, our human warlock, played by my girlfriend Georgia, she took the healer's feat, so now she can use a healer's kit to actually restore hit points to people, which has been really handy. But they figure out whose horses they are, and they decide to track the goblins back to their hideout. They get there, they manage to avoid the traps just fine. They make their way to the hideout, they sneak up, they surprise and kill the goblins who are watching outside without them noticing, and everything is going pretty well as they sneak their way into the caves. Only one of them has dark vision, and so as they're moving up, they see the wolves that are inside. They move past them, they don't goad them, so the wolves are like trying to break the chains, but they don't. But they don't notice the goblin. There's a goblin up on a bridge as there's this stream running through the cave, and they just sort of move up using the elf to guide them as it gets more dark, and they're hesitant to light their torch so that they can see. And so they go up there, and they're exploring, and since the goblin noticed them, I decided to have them release one of their floods. The goblins in the upper chambers, there's this dammed up waterfall in this pool, and they can release this water. So this huge flood comes down. The monk manages to dodge and jump into a shadowy tunnel on the other side of the river. The barbarian succeeds her strength saving throw, manages to hold fast, but the rogue and the warlock get swept away and take some damage on their way out. This is where things sort of spiraled out of control in a really fun and exciting way. So what ends up happening is that they're down there, the barbarian is staying put and keeping watch, and the monk decides to explore this rubble that kind of goes up an escarpment in this little passageway. So he climbs up and it collapses, but he rolls like a natural 20 on his dex saving throw. So I don't even have him take half damage, and he manages to grab onto the upper ledge. And he pulls up and he sees this passageway with his dark vision, and he sees that on the left there's like some firelight coming from the passage, and he hears the sounds of goblin voices muttering to each other. And he hears one of them laugh, and then he hears like a hit sound, and then he hears a not goblin voice go, ugh. So they're like, oh, is that Gundren? Like, is he in this room? And he's gonna go back down to find his allies. While this is happening, Sky, the Dragonborn barbarian played by Sharon, she decides, well, I'm gonna climb up to this bridge. I want to see what's up above us. It's like 20 feet up, and she goes to climb up the rock wall. It's slick, and she rolls, but she just barely makes the check, and she climbs up onto the bridge. She's lit a torch and now put it in her mouth so that she can see. So she climbs up to this wall, and as she is doing that, the goblin has seen her do this, and so it runs back to its friends in the next room. So he's got 3 allies in the next room, and he runs back, and she throws a javelin, wounds him, but doesn't kill him, but then doesn't pursue. She doesn't want to get too far separate, but she stands there at the ready, waiting to see what happens. So the monk comes back down from his explorations at the same time that the warlock and rogue come back from getting washed down this river, or the stream. So they make their way back, and as they do, the goblins have now confirmed that the first flood did not take care of them. So there's 2 floods. So they release the second one. The monk is safe because he's already across the stream. The barbarian's safe because she's up on the cliff tunnel with the bridge. But the rogue and the warlock again are now down in the path. So the monk says, okay, Richard's like, okay, I have Eldrin offers his hand to try to help one of them jump across. So I have the warlock and the rogue, Georgia and Leo, they roll just straight d20s, and I just said, add your dexterity modifier. Whoever gets the highest is the one that manages to take hold of his hand. So unfortunately for our warlock, the rogue succeeded, but he needed the advantage granted by this assistance, as he rolled a 1 and an 8 plus his dexterity modifier. He just made it across the stream, so he gets saved, and the warlock once again gets pushed down the stream. And then this is where that sort of trickling effect occurs, because the rogue, they're like, okay, I'm gonna go check on our friend who just got washed down again. And I think the warlock took like 5 points of damage this time around, like she hit her head on like a rock or something on her way down. So he goes to check on her, and the monk goes to meet up with the barbarians, like she shouldn't be by herself. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. So he goes over to her, and she lowers down a rope, so I don't have to make a check. They're helping each other out. And as she pulls him up, and as the rogue makes it back down the passageway to the opening to the cave, the goblins that are in the other room, the 3 that sit there, and then the one that was guarding the bridge, they are there, and they know that they outnumber this barbarian. There's 4 of them and 1 of her. So they show up just as Eldrin gets pulled up, and now it's 4 goblins versus 2 adventurers. Now, goblins in 5th edition D&D don't mess around. They're easy to kill, but they do a lot of damage. If you don't get rid of them and start getting rid of some of their turn orders, they can really hurt a group of first level players who don't have a lot of hit points. Also keep in mind that the highest armor class that in this group right now is the monk, and I mean, he was running at 16, but it was actually supposed to be an 18 because his dex and wizard's so high. But other than that, they don't have like a tanky character other than the barbarian with her shield of hit points. So they get ambushed by these goblins, and so they're coming down this narrow passageway one at a time. They're like shooting arrows and like attacking them with scimitars. And the monk holds his action so that the dragonborn can use her breath weapon. And she breathes the fire down this tunnel. She can catch 2 of them. They both fail their saving throws, and she rolls 2 1s on her d6s. And we're all like, no! And so I described it as she shoots the fire breath, but she was aiming to hit like a medium-sized, like human height enemy. So it like singed like their arms as they're flailing their weapons, like the tops of their heads. So with that happening, all the goblins are still alive. The wounded one that she hurt earlier is hiding in the back, and they're fighting them. The monk misses both of his attacks. Their allies are making their way back up the passageway. They see this flash of light as the dragonborn breathes this torrent of flame, and they make it up there, but not before Eldrin takes some arrows to the knee. He takes some arrows and he falls unconscious, collapsed in the cave. So he's bleeding out. The barbarian keeps on getting pelted. One of the goblins loops around and starts attacking from below. And so we were describing, and Sharon's new at the game. She's playing the barbarian Sky, or Skywings is the full name. And she's like, okay, well, what do I do? This is looking really bad. Because the allies, they're 20 feet below, and there's a cliff face and a wall, so they can't shoot up there to help them. So the spellcaster and the rogue can't really do anything. So at this point, we're like describing like different things she can do. She could try to run. She could try to just keep fighting. She could try to pick him up. She could jump off the cliff. And so what she ends up deciding to do, as they're getting surrounded by these goblins, is at 1 hit point, this barbarian picks up her elf friend, heaves him up, and leaps off the bridge into the stream. And so I have her make an acrobatics check to see if she lands and avoids damage. The stream will cushion it a little bit, or if she takes damage. She's only had 1 hit point. So she leaps and fails the acrobatics check. So falls unconscious, falls prone in the stream, and I roll, and fortunately both of them lie face up in the stream as they get rushed down the stream. So they've leapt off, and I describe it as like she leaps off and her allies look up as she like comes down, and there are like arrows flying around her. It sounded really cool. I like that imagery. It was really cool. And it was nice because while the fight was going poorly, and even though she still fell unconscious, it was in this cool moment to save an ally. So I thought it was really neat. So as they're going down the stream, which is actually working out, they don't have to get dragged out by their allies. They're just sort of floating down. The Warlock tries to shoot an Eldritch Blast at one of the Goblins looping around in one of the side tunnels. Misses and then jumps into the stream to just kind of get washed away. But she takes some damage and the rapids down there. And then the Rogue, he manages to kill one of the Goblins with his short bow before he runs out, and they escape out of the cave mouth. And at this point I was just like, okay, the Goblins, they're pretty weak. They enjoy feeling his power, and they just defeated 2 enemies. One of them is a dragon person. One of them, they're pretty sure they killed one, and the other one looked like it died when it fell into the stream, and the other ones ran away from them. So they sit up on the bridge, and they sort of like curse at them in Goblin, and they're chanting like, yeah. And so yeah, I didn't have them pursue them because I felt like they had won. They felt they had driven off these invaders, and they had succeeded in defeating these big people. So the allies retreat. They drag the bodies of their unconscious allies out of the water and have them roll their death saving throws. But fortunately, the Warlock still has a bunch of uses of her healer's kit left, and so when she uses it to stabilize them, they come back at 1 hit point. And so they come to consciousness and they retreat into the thickets to make camp, and they take a short rest. And that's where we left the game. We played for a couple hours and it was a lot of fun. And it provided a good amount of challenge. Everyone got to hit something. I think the only person who didn't get a kill was the Barbarian, which is sort of unfortunate. Warlock got like 2 critical hits and blew up 2 Goblins with her Eldritch Blast in separate encounters. Rogue got his sneak attack bonus using his bow. The Monk got a 1-shot with his unarmed strike. It was pretty awesome. And then they had this, they got caught in this difficult situation, but they managed to find a way out of it. So I really liked it. It was really a good time, and I think they all had a good time too. I think they enjoy a bit of the role-playing with the action and adventure, which is what I like. So we'll have to see what happens. They've been driven out of the caves. I have to decide how I want the Goblins to respond to this, whether they go back to business, whether they replace the guard on the bridge, or maybe now they'll have like a patrol moving through the tunnels now that they've been invaded once. Or like maybe we'll keep an eye out, like maybe they'll come out and check to see about the guards out front. Like if these guys got in, what happened to our guys out in the front? But they're also Goblins, so they'll probably just go and brag to their friends in one of the other passages, and yeah, I'll have to decide. So it's a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to doing more sessions and then telling you guys about what happened. And we had some funny character interactions, and I wasn't sure how they were gonna go for the role-playing bits, but I was surprised. They all stepped up, and they all, some of them spoke in character. Others of them, were cool about describing what they did. Some players get discouraged at failure, but these guys seem to like take it in stride and like made it part of the narrative, which I really like. I like it when players don't get mad when a failure happens, because that's inevitable. And when they take it and they're just like, darn it, or like they describe how they fail, and enjoy that with the success. I think that makes it much more enjoyable, because you're rolling a lot of dice, and as you adventure, you roll more, and the chances of you failing eventually increases. So when you fail, it's good to sort of like make it part of the narrative and not get mad because it didn't go the exact way you pictured. So I'm really happy with this group. I hope that we get to keep playing. We're planning on playing again next Friday. So once we play, I'll be able to come back with another Dungeon Master's Journal for you guys. Let me know if you guys enjoy this stuff. I'll probably keep doing it anyway, because if I'm spending the time making this D&D game and running it, so I might as well make it part of the channel. I've just gotten back into Overwatch. I haven't played since early September, but now this Halloween event dropped, so I've been playing a bunch. Trying to get back into it. So hopefully we can do an Overwatch stream at some point. As I'm getting the rust off, I might hold off on a bit so you guys don't have to see me suck. But I have plenty of other games to play, so we can check that out. But thank you guys so much for watching. You guys have been awarded some Geek XP. And until next time, stay geeky, my friends.